Hey YouTube, Joe Walker here at Def Digits Guitar Lessons, and I'm going live right now for my student Marcus. And Marcus has been working on writing out his arpeggios for different seventh chords. He's a jazz player mostly, but what we're going to cover today in this lesson, integrating scales and arpeggios on the fretboard, will apply to pretty much any genre where you need to know those things, or any skill of playing where you need to know those things. Make sure this looks good and you can see that. So what we're doing is we're going to integrate all of these things in different positions on the fretboard. And there are different types of ways to chop up the positions on the fretboard. The way you chop it up mentally doesn't really matter. We're still going to try to integrate all of these different concepts in the same places. So what we're going to look at is, number one, the root. It's not so trivial because I've had many occasions where a student is playing something, they're playing through a scale, and they struggle for a moment, and I ask them, where's the root right now? And they don't know. Where is the closest root? You should always be hanging on to that root. So if at any point you're playing something and you don't know exactly where the root is, then that's your biggest issue. Fix that first. So we need to know where the roots are. Oftentimes we have several different roots that are available under our fingers, and we need to know where those are in order to know where all of the other notes are around the roots. Then we need to know the triad around that, and the seventh chord beyond that, the pentatonic, and the diatonic scale, the big 7-note scale. So if we're in major world, if we're playing in major, the melodies that we might play might come from any of those different concepts. And you can see that there's a lot of overlap between them. After the triad, the 1, 3, 5, everything contains 1, 3, and 5 beyond that. So it's important to know where those notes are. You might be playing some concept that uses that triad, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 6. Maybe you throw the 6 in because maybe you're thinking of the pentatonic scale, or maybe you're just thinking of that note, the 6. So you can shift between all of those as long as you can see all of the places where they overlap on your fretboard. Same thing with minor world. There's a lot of overlap between all of those. And we could do this in several other categories too. We could take the minor 7 flat 5 approach. We could take the diminished approach. The Dorian sound would be a tweak on the last scale down here. So we can get lots of different sounds from this, taking the same approach. Right now we're just doing it straight major and straight minor before looking at any others. So let me show you what I mean about integrating these things. I'm going to start with a position on the fretboard that most people will probably find pretty common. I think it's the one that everyone learns first, where you've got your root is on the low E string and another root on the 4th string and another root on the high E string. And you get a major bar chord like that or a minor bar chord like that in this position. So if we play the whole major scale, I'm doing an A major scale right now. If we go through the whole major scale, we're getting this. So that's where we are right now. And I just played that diatonic scale, the entire major scale. So that's where we want to think backwards from there. So the roots, whatever you're playing in this position, when you're playing something over major, always make sure that you know where those 3 roots are. And if you're in a different position, you'll need to know where those roots are. So we've got that one, that one, that one. So now let's start building up from the top down. If we go to the triad, we're going to get 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. And we don't have to take all of these scales and arpeggios and play them straight up and down all the way through. What you want to be able to do is know that that's the 3, you know that that's the 5, and you know that that's the root, and you know what each of these notes are. And then you can play around with them and make melodies. So mess around with those notes and try to make sure that mentally you're saying that that's a 3, yeah, that's the 5, and that's the 3, and that's the 1. Whichever notes you're on, you're keeping track of the 1, the 3, and the 5 when you're doing that. Then we move down to the 7th chord and we add the 7. So we get 1, 3, 5, 7. Then we got 1. We can get a 7 down here. 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1. And I'm not going to narrate where all of these individual notes are. That's for you to work out. So again, if you mess around with that arpeggio, make sure you're identifying mentally or out loud what the scale degrees are. 7, 5, 7, 5, 3, 5, 7, 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 5, 3, 7, 5. So whatever it is, you can sing it or you can say it out loud or mentally say it. Make sure you're keeping track of the scale degrees. Next, on the pentatonic, we're going to drop the 7 and we're going to add the 2 and the 6. So now we get 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. 1, 2. Same thing, make sure you're keeping track of all of those scale degrees, and then the entire diatonic scale that we played at the beginning. And maybe you could throw a chord in there too. At the end, if you do any chords related to major, like a major 7 chord or a major 6 chord, try to identify all those same scale degrees because they're the same ones that you were just doing up in here. That's it for major. Let's do the same thing on minor in that same position. Root is here and here and here. And now we're going to play a minor triad over that. So we get 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3. Then add the flat 7. So we get 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. Then we add the 4, right? Yeah, we just add the 4 to get pentatonic. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. 1, flat 3. Then we can add, to get a straight minor scale, we add that 2 and the flat 6. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. And again, we could do that same treatment with other minor scales that would be derived from the things from up above. Like we could do melodic minor, harmonic minor. Those would have different seventh degrees up on the steps above as well. Dorian, Phrygian, if you want to go that far. Now let's look at some other places where you could do this. So if you've done the cage system and you've chopped the fretboard into 5 parts, then obviously repeat this same treatment on all 5 of those parts. This takes a long time to integrate, but this is the way to do it, is to identify where the triad and the 7th chord and the pentatonic and the diatonic, where they all intersect, and make sure you're identifying the actual scale degrees of each note. So give that same treatment to those other positions. I'm going to show you how to do this in an open position, because that would also be useful if you play any music that uses open positions. So if we're doing, say we're doing C major over here in open position, the complete scale, to give you a point of reference, would be like this. So that's the same as one of the caged shapes, but it doesn't have the same muscle memory because most of those notes or a good portion of them are open strings. So now if we build up the same thing from the beginning and we go root is here and here and put the major triad on top of it, we get 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. And we can get a 5 and a 3 down there. Then we can do the 7th chord, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1. Oops. And the pentatonic, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And then the complete major scale. Same thing with minor, 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5. I guess C minor doesn't work so well as an open position. So I would probably skip the minor world when I'm doing C minor over here. I'd probably do that treatment in A minor. Let me do that right now. A minor root here and here. 1 flat 3 5 1 flat 3 5 and a 5 down below as well. Minor pentatonic would go 1 flat 3 4. Oh no, the 7th chord. 1 flat 3 5 flat 7 1 flat 3 5 flat 7. And the minor pentatonic 1 flat 3 4 5 flat 7 1 flat 3 4 5 flat 7. Notice that that's the same pentatonic as C major was, the same set of notes, but they're all labeled differently because now they're labeled relative to the A root. And then the complete minor scale is again going to be the same as the complete C major scale. Again, all different scale degree names for these notes. 1 2 flat 3 4 5 flat 6 flat 7. Now let's do one other place we can do this. We can do the same, we can follow the same formula any place we want to say, here's our collection of notes. So we did that over here on the open strings. We did it over here on one position. You can do it on all the rest of the cage shapes. You can also do it on a single string. So I'm going to take the high E string and do the same thing, just going along the high E string as far as I can go. So the root I'm going to put as the open string, but you can put the root anywhere. Just say root's going to be G and build it off of that. Make sure you can find all your notes relative to G. For now, I'm going to do the root as the open string, open E, and your other root is the 12th fret. So you found your roots at step 1. Next, we want the triad, major triad. 1 3 5 1 3 5. And then the 7th chord. 1 3 5 7 1. And I don't have room to hit my 7 up there, but I know it would be right there. Next, we want the major pentatonic. 1 2 3 5 6. 1 2 3 5 6. So a lot of this I have to play slower than the scale shapes that were in one position, just because I have to move and I have to reuse the same finger over and over. And the full major scale: 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6. Next, let's do the same thing with minor on the same string. So our roots are still in the same places, E roots. Now the minor triad will be 1 flat 3 5 flat 3 5. And the minor 7th chord will go 1 flat 3 5 flat 7 1 flat 3 5, and I have the flat 7. Oops, flat 7 5 flat 3. And I forgot there was one other way we could have done the major side. We could have done dominant over there, 1 3 5 flat 7. So lots of different worlds you could explore, just drilling down from the root to the triad to the 7th chord, whichever sound you want to go for, whichever overlapping scales and arpeggios you want to see. Next, we go to let's see, pentatonic, minor pentatonic. 1 flat 3 4 5 flat 7 1 flat 3 4 5 flat 7. And the full minor scale: 1 2 flat 3 4 5 flat 6 flat 7 1 2 flat 3 4 5 flat 6 flat 7. So anywhere you want to define a region, you can do this arbitrarily sometimes. You can just say inside these 2 frets and see what notes you can find inside these 2 frets without going outside the frets. And you won't have access to all of those notes in sequence. Like if I want to do a B triad, a B major triad just on frets 7 and 8, I won't be able to get the 3 because it's either here or it's up here. So I'll have to go 1, skip the 3, skip the 5, skip the next one. There's a 3 and a 5 and a 1. So you limit yourself like this to just say, here's the region I'm exploring. Could be on a string, could be a region of the fretboard, and drill down through these overlapping sounds and make sure you can map out all of those notes. That's it for today. Have fun. Thanks for watching. See you next time.